Hey, what's up, guys? Dan Fletcher here again with another episode of Let's Learn Ruby on Codecademy. So in the last episode, we learned just some basic string matching and a little bit more string manipulation. Following up with the next section here, we're going to be learning loops and iterators. So let's get started with that. So, the while loop. Sometimes you want to repeat an action in Ruby while a certain condition is true, but you don't know how many times you'll have to repeat that action. A good example would be prompting a user for a certain type of input. If they insist on giving you the wrong thing, you may have to re-ask them several times before you get the kind of input you're looking for. To accomplish this, we use something called a while loop. It checks to see if a certain condition is true, and while it is, the loop keeps running. As soon as the condition stops being true, the loop stops. And the instructions say, check out the code in the editor. Can you guess what it'll do? When you think you know, hit run to see the results. Okay, so starting with the first line, we have a variable called counter. We are setting it to the integer 1. And here we're saying while the counter is less than 11, we're going to put the value of counter. And then this interesting line, this is something, we haven't seen a while loop. We also haven't seen something like this yet up to this point. So we're taking the value of counter, we're incrementing it by 1, and then we're assigning that value into counter. So what we can guess probably happens. Counter is 1, okay, so this looks like a truth test to me. Just going off, obviously you can probably tell I've programmed in other languages before. So I'm not new to while loops, but just sort of pretending like we are new programmers, and some of you might be. We learned these comparator operators earlier, right? So this we know that this evaluates to true or false. So we're saying like while this expression is true, keep doing this stuff. So counter is 1, which is less than 11. That's true. Okay, so print the counter to the console over here. So we'll print 1, and then we're gonna add 1 to counter. And we already know that this is a loop, so we can probably guess that we're going to come back up to this line. Counter will be 2, which is less than 11, so we'll print 2, and we'll keep looping through until counter no longer is less than 11. So I'm guessing we're going to print the numbers 1 through 10. So let's run it and see. And here we have the numbers 1 through 10. Okay, so let's go to the next lesson. Danger, infinite loops. Did you see that? The loop printed out the numbers 1 to 10, then stopped. This was because the loop's condition said to continue while counter was less than 11. Since counter went up 1 each time through the loop stopped when counter hit 11. What if we'd forgotten to increment counter? It would have stayed at 1, the loop would have kept checking to see if it was less than 11, and 1 is always less than 11, and the loop would never have ended. This is called an infinite loop, and it will cause your programs to crash. Avoid them at all costs. The while loop in the editor is currently an infinite loop. Correct it so it will end. Be careful, if you click run right away, you'll start the infinite loop and you'll have to refresh the page. So let's break it. So it's just gonna, here we have like I is equal to 0 while I is less than 5. Print I to the console, and I will just always be 0, so it'll keep looping forever. And then assumably Codecademy probably has some checks in the background that probably just quit the process so that you don't lock up your browser. So yeah, we'll just refresh. And Chrome, this is kind of Chrome's fail-safe for infinite loops, saying, hey, the following pages become unresponsive. You can wait for it to become responsive or kill it. Well, we already know it's never going to become responsive because that page is stuck in an infinite loop, so we'll just kill the process, and then we'll have to manually reload the page. Okay, cool. So what were the instructors again? Oh, correct it so that it's not an infinite loop. So let's just delete this comment. And yeah, I'm assuming. Okay, so assuming a lot of you probably are watching this and are maybe new to programming, you might already know this or you might not. I can just increment ++. I mean, I don't actually know for sure. I'm assuming Ruby probably has this. If you don't know what that does, so say I wanted to increment I by 1, I could do this, which we saw in the last lesson. I could also do a short form of this. I could do += I. So this is saying take the value of I, increment it by 1, and then store that into I. And then there's even a shorthand for this in most programming languages, is that. So I don't know yet if this exists in Ruby. We're going to find out when I click Run. And apparently it doesn't like that. I'm assuming Ruby has a different shorthand. Maybe this works. So that didn't work. Oh no, sorry. Bad explanation. Let me refresh the page and I'll show you what I meant to explain there. It would be I + = 1, not I + = I. That's just saying like 0 and then increment 0 by 0, and it's always going to be 0. So give Chrome a chance to prompt us again to kill the page. I'll kill it. Let's reload it. And yeah, += 1. And judging by the fact that the last program failed, yeah, okay. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Ruby doesn't have this. I'm guessing there's probably a syntax that's somehow just shorter than that. I don't know that much about Ruby, but the Ruby code that I have seen and been exposed to is very tight and terse and very it's very high level. You can do a lot with a very small amount of code in Ruby, so it surprises me that there's not this shorthand incrementer. Okay, so for now, we'll just do += 1. Yeah, run it again, and it still passes. Let's go to the next lesson. The until loop. The complement to the while loop is the until loop. It's sort of like a backward while. I wonder if this is kind of like a do while. Oh no, this wouldn't be like a do while. This would be more like the unless statement that we learned earlier, only with loops. Okay, so in the example above, we first create a variable I and set it to 0. Then we execute a block of code until I is equal to 6. That block of code increments I. When I is equal to 6, the block ends. Finally, we print 6, the value of I, to the console. Yeah, so it's kind of like unless. If let's move forward with these instructions. So on line 2, fill these underscores so that the loop breaks when the counter is greater than 10. On line 5, increment counter like we do in the example above. So we'll start with the incrementer. So we'll take counter, we will += that by 1. And then over here, we're going to say until the counter is equal to 10, just 2 equal signs. Do this loop, and this should work. And Okay, so with a while loop, we're doing like a truth test. We're saying like while this condition here, this expression evaluates to true, right? So a way that I could express this in a while loop would be if the counter is less than 10, because this will keep being true until counter is 10 or some number greater than 10, and this will return false, which will break the loop. It's reasonable to assume the way that this is working, we're testing for a false, right? So counter is 1, so 1 is equal to 10, that's false, and it'll keep running through the loop. So let's just run it. Let's see, we want it to count to 10. So when we don't want equal to 10, we want either equal to 11 or greater than 10. We'll run that and it should pass, and it does. Okay. More assignment operators. We've been using syntax like counter equals counter plus 1, which works, but as you'll increasingly find with Ruby, there's always another way. A shortcut to use an assignment operator. You already know one assignment operator, the equal sign, which sets a variable. You can update a variable with additional assignment operators. However, you can update a variable with additional assignment operators, however, which include plus equal, minus equal, times equal, and divide equal. For instance, when you type counter plus equal 1, you're telling Ruby add 1 to counter, then assign that new value back to counter. This provides a succinct way of updating variable values in our programs. Some languages have the increment operators plus plus and minus minus, which also add or subtract from a value, but Ruby does not, as we already discovered. You'll have to make do with plus equal and minus equal. Why though? It's so stupid. There's got to be an equivalent to this, right? I think so. Alright, so the loop from the first exercise is in the editor. Rewrite it using the appropriate assignment operator. You guys changed my code. I did not write that. Okay. Anyway, counter plus equal 1, run it. And awesome, we're green, we're good to go. Next, the for loop. Sometimes you do know how many times you'll be looping, however, and when that's the case, you'll want to use a for loop. Take a look at the example for loop in the editor. Can you guess what it does? Okay, so for num in 1 ... 10 puts num end. So I'm guessing when you have a for loop like this, this is probably declaring a new variable, and this syntax here is probably a way of Ruby expressing a range. So we're saying from 1 to 10, and we're saying so for num in 1 to 10. So we're saying we have this range, and for each value in the range, we're going to assign it to this variable called num, right? And then we're going to put num, or puts, sorry, num. So this will run through and just print the numbers 1 to 10. So let's run it and see if I am right. And I was a little wrong. Prints the numbers 1 to 9. So it's off by 1. So, a range from 1 to 10. Weird. I really would think that would print 10. Let's just go to the next lesson. Inclusive and exclusive ranges. So I guess this is probably going to explain my confusion, I'm guessing. So you saw a bit of new syntax in the previous exercises. This What this says to Ruby is for the variable num in the range of 1 to 10, do the following. The following was to puts value of number. So as num took on the values of 1 to 9, one at a time those values were printed to the console. The reason this program counted to 9 and not 10 was that we used 3 dots in the range. This tells Ruby to exclude the final number in the count. Okay, so this bit of syntax here means go up to but don't include 10. If we use 2 dots, this tells Ruby to include the highest number in the range. Okay, cool. So yeah, update the for loop in the editor in 2 ways. Make it print the numbers 1 to 15, including 15. Change it to use dot dot instead of dot dot dot. Okay, so we'll change it to 15. We'll remove the dot, so this time it should print all the numbers from 1 to 15, including 15. And it does. And we pass, so let's go to the next. Building your own. Good work. You're ready to build your very own for loop. Write a for loop that puts the numbers 1 to 20, including 20, using either dot dot or dot dot dot. Check. Hint if you need a syntax refresher. I do not. So for num in the range of 1 to 20, we will puts num and then end our loop. Let's run it. And we get the numbers 1 to 20. We're green. Good to go. The loop method. Interesting. So far, we've learned one way to repeat an action in Ruby using loops. As is often the case in Ruby, however, there's more than one way to accomplish a given task. In this task, it's also possible to repeat an action using an iterator. An iterator is just a Ruby method that repeatedly invokes a block of code. The code block is just the bit that contains the instructions to be repeated, and those instructions can be just about anything you like. The simplest iterator is the loop method. You can create a basic but infinite loop by simply typing loop print hello world. In Ruby, there are curly braces in Ruby. Okay. In Ruby, curly braces are generally interchangeable with the keywords do to open the block of code and end to close it. Knowing this, we can write a smarter loop than the one above. Excuse me. So I equals 0, loop do, which I guess is just a replacement for these guys. And I wonder if you can use curly braces with if statements if it's a single line if statement. I'm gonna play around with that later. So loop do I plus equal 1, and then we'll print the value of I, break if I is greater than 5, and that's a pretty standard reserved word in a lot of programming languages for escaping loops is this break. So the break keyword is our get out of jail free card. It breaks a loop as soon as the condition is met. Replace the underscores in the editor with the appropriate keywords. Check the hint if you need help. Okay. So I have I equals 20, and I will loop the do I minus equal 1. We'll print the value of I, and we will break if I walk. We will break if I is less than equal to 0. Hit Control Enter to run that, and we are good to go. Next, actually back. Hang on, I'm just curious. So if we'll just say true, puts, holy shit, curly braces. Does that work? Nope. Okay, I don't know. I thought maybe, but I was wrong. Windows. hang on. Yeah, let's just reset. We'll do this again. Yeah, loop do break. Run it. Oh, apparently lop is not a keyword in Ruby. Good to know. Next. Next is next. The next keyword can be used to skip over certain steps in the loop. For instance, if we don't want to print out the even numbers, we can write for I in range of 1 to 5. Next, if I modulo 2 equals 0, print I. Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. In the above example, we loop through the range of 1 through 5, assigning each number to I in turn. So if the number is even, or the number, or so if the remainder of I divided by 2 is 0, we get to the next iteration of the loop. Right, so any even number we skip. Then we print the value of I. This line only prints out 1, 3, and 5 because of the previous line. Add a line to your loop before your print statement. Use the next keywords that you skip to the next iteration if the number I is odd. Use the example for help. Remember that the example above skips even numbers. Okay, so next, if I modulo 2 is not equal to 0, that means it's an odd number, so we should skip it. Let's run that, and we get all even numbers. And yes, it passes. So next, saving multiple values. Let's say we want to save a range of numbers in a variable. How would we do this? A variable can only hold a single value, right? In Ruby, we can pack multiple values into a single variable using an array. An array is just a list of items between square brackets, like so. I got your opening square bracket, and we got some integers, 1, 2, 3, 4. The items don't have to be in order. You can just as easily have 10, 31, 19, 400. And on that note, they don't necessarily have to be, oh, never mind. They are not incrementing. Create a variable called myArray and set it equal to the numbers 1 through 5, inclusive in order. So my array equals, I wonder, can you do this? What about this? Just curious. No. Is there a spread operator in Ruby? Nope. Okay. Apparently, it really wants that. And that passed. Very cool. We don't need that line there. Okay, let's go to the next. The each iterator. Great work. You're really getting the hang of this. The loop iterator is the simplest, but also one of the least powerful. A more useful iterator is the each method, which can apply an expression to each element of an object, one at a time. The syntax looks like this. We have some object, which they have not exposed us to objects yet in this course. Object.each, and so for each item, excuse me, we'll do something. You can also use the do keyword instead of the curly braces. So object each do, item do something. The variable name between the pipes can be anything you like. It's just a placeholder for each element of the object you're using .each on. So instructions. Take a look at the code in the editor. When you're pretty sure you know what to do, click Run to test your theory. Okay, so we have an array with 5 items. For each item in the array, we'll call each item x, and we're going to increment each item by 10, and then we're going to print it. So yeah, it's going to print 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think, right? Run it. Let's change print to put so we can read what the fuck that is. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Cool. Yeah, let's go next. Try it out. Cool. No. Now it's your turn to take the each method for a test drive. So they have this example code here. In the example above, we create an array called numbers. Then we show two different ways to print each item in numbers to the console. Just two different syntaxes. So yeah, you could do numbers.each with these curly braces, keep it on one line and do item puts item, or you could do it a little more verbose, multiple lines, using do and end instead of the curly braces. So use the .each method on the odds array to print out double the value of each item of the array. In other words, multiply each item by 2. Make sure to use print rather than put so your output appears on one line. Check the hint if you get stuck. Okay, so I'll go odds.each. So we'll just do x, and we will print x times 2. Run that, and we get green. Next, the times iterator. The times method is like a super compact for loop. It can perform a task on each item in an object a specified number of times. They keep talking about object. They actually explain objects. For example, if we wanted to print out chunky bacon 10 times, we might type 10.times print chunky bacon. We don't know why we would type that, but we could. That's pretty cool. So use the times operator, print out a string of your choice any number of times you like. Use the code in the text above as a guide if you need help. Cool. So 500 times. And we will print, no. We will put everything is awesome. Which is true. So many everythings. And yeah, we are green. So next. Looping with while. Okay, training wheels off. Let's see your stuff. In the above example, we create a variable called I. We set it to 3. Then we print out 3, 2, 1. Since we execute the loop as long as I is positive. Right, so while I is greater than 0, do this, print it out, and we decrement I by 1 each time. And the instructions say, use a while loop to print out the numbers 1 through 50 inclusive. While the example above counts down, you will want to count up. Use print rather than puts, and don't forget to increment your variable. Okay. Oh, right, so this isn't anything new. They just want us to practice. Okay, so I equals 1. And while I is less than 50, we will print I, and we will increment I by 1 and end the loop, run it. We get a big red nasty X. It looks like you didn't print out the numbers 1 to 50 inclusive. That's right, I did not. Let's do less than or equal to. That should work, and it does. We get green. Let's go to the next. Looping with until, good work. In the example above, we wrote the same loop using while and using until. Now rewrite your while loop using until. You still want to print out the numbers 1 through 50 inclusive. Yeah, so we'll just say until I is equal to, no, not equal, greater than 50. That should work, right? It does. Next. Looping with for. In case you're not picking up on the theme of Ruby, having a gajillion ways to do any given task, let's convert our loop yet again. In the above example, we print out 1, 2, 3 by virtue of looping from 1 to through 3 inclusive. Now print out the numbers from 1 to 50 inclusive using a for loop instead of an until loop. Let me just... How do you just delete a whole line? For I in 1 to 50, do all the rest of the stuff. And that works, right? Yep. Next. Loop the loop loop. Great work. Will give you a bit of break from the numbers game. In the example above, we print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, since we loop 10 times. Use the loop iterator to print out the string Ruby 30 times. Make sure to type the string exactly as shown. Okay, so loop. We will do... I don't know, M, well, yeah, M equals Ruby, oh, with an exclamation, and then, yeah, so loop, do, print, did it say print, or, yeah, it did say print, M, and then we will break if M equals, whoa, no. The fuck am I doing? Print Ruby M equals 0. So this will loop 0 to 29, which is 30 times, and then end. Does that work? Ruby, 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 Ruby. Did I do that right? M equals 0, loop print Ruby break if M is equal to 30. I think I broke it. Let's just refresh. Oh, I'm not incrementing. Yeah, see, so that's how easy it is to do that. I wrote an infinite loop. So yeah, anyway, M plus equal 1. And then we'll run it. And it should be green, and it is. Okay, next. Iterating with times. Finally, let's replace our loop with the times iterator. Use the times iterator to print Ruby to the console 30 times, hit run to see the majesty of your code and complete this lesson. Right, how did we use that? I think like this, right? Dot times. Fuck, I don't even remember how. Oh yeah, it was, I think it was a number. I think, right? 30 times, and then you did this. It was like print Ruby. Let's see. Yeah! Cool. Next, that should be the end of this lesson, and it is. So yeah, the next one is gonna be, I have no idea what that word is. Redacted? I don't know. In this project, we'll make a program that searches a string of text for your name, and if it finds it, replaces it with the word redacted. Just like that, you're a spy. I feel like I should probably know what that word means, but I don't. Anyway, yeah, we will do that next. So it turns out redacted is a word, and it's to censor or obscure part of a text for legal or secure purposes. I don't know if I'm just weird for not knowing what that word means, or maybe nobody else knows what it means too. Anyway, that's the end of episode 4 or 5. I can't remember which one we're on now. It's the end of this episode. If you have any comments or questions, whatever, leave them in the comments below. Click that subscribe button, and you'll get my videos in your feed. And yeah, thank you for watching this, and later. Cheers. All the good stuff.